Welcome to The Story. We're at City Hall in downtown Portland, where today Mayor Keith Wilson outlined his plan to address the homeless crisis. He's set a lofty, if not impossible, goal on ending unsheltered homelessness by December 1st. How he plans to do it, it's our big story tonight.
What I want to talk about today is a plan to solve the crisis and relieve the suffering we all see on the street every day. And when we work together to do that, we will make our existing programs to reduce homelessness even more effective.
So that was Mayor Keith Wilson just a few hours ago in City Hall, where for the first time he unveiled his plan to end unsheltered homelessness by December 1st. It was arguably the biggest talking point of his mayoral campaign last fall, even though it raised eyebrows, including mine, from the start. So today we got a look at how he plans to do it. And my takeaway? It left me and the new city council with many unanswered questions. Let's get right into it. Mayor Wilson wants to rely on setting up a network of low-barrier, nighttime emergency overnight shelters, costing about $35 a bed per night. And he's also leaning on day centers, including a plan for 4 new ones in each district of Portland, serving 150 people each, costing about $50 a day per person. In total, he wants to add 1,500 shelter beds by December 1st. As far as where those emergency overnight beds would be, he wants to use community centers, businesses, and churches located near transit centers. The end goal is to encourage people to get connected to services to get them off the streets. And he wants to enforce something called stay limits at shelters in an effort to speed up that process.
In addition, we must make changes to our 24-hour shelters as they are, reintroduce 90-day stay limits, require engagement with case managers, and follow bed utilization rules, where we make sure every bed every night is being used for life-saving care and never empty. We must think about the best we can do right here, right now. We must change the way we think about the crisis and respond immediately and decisively.
Another move he hopes to make in his plan, or blueprint as he called it today, is something that's certainly caught my eye. It has to do with campsite removals. According to his presentation to council, he wants to end the 72-hour posting requirement for unestablished encampments and stop the whack-a-mole process that plays out now, where camps and RVs simply move 2 blocks from street to street. But when he was asked about ending that 72-hour posting requirement, the mayor did not really answer the question, which came from Councilor Candace Avalos of District 1.
You were suggesting getting rid of the 72-hour posting notice, so I wanted to understand why.
Now, the law is the law. But if we can work with the Oregon Law Center to state that if it's an established encampment, we must provide a 72-hour notice. And that's as a courtesy. If they've been there for weeks on end, that's their life. Those are their belongings. But if we remove an encampment on one side of Powell Boulevard, and that person chooses to move to the other side of Powell Boulevard, which is an anecdote that Hank Smith was talking about, and that is no longer an established encampment, then we should be able to help that person and say, I want to help you. What does it look like? But you can't stay here. So the establishment clause is the critical part. Now, I don't have answers. We have 11 months to work through the details, but I've already started conversations with the Oregon Law Center to say, how does that work? And you know what they responded to me? They said, Keith, first of all, nobody's ever come and talked to us first before they implemented a law. They always wait for it to happen after, and then we sue them. And he says, you're the first candidate or politician that ever has come to me to ask me my opinion. But he said, Keith, I can't give you guidance. But at least you're caring for your community first, and you're providing that resource before implementing or enforcing the law. He says, I think you're going to be just fine. Now, that's not legal advice, because he isn't going to give me legal advice, but they're going to be at the table with us during this journey this next many months.
I was trying very hard to follow. I don't feel like I heard the answer I'm asking for. So are you saying that you are not trying to change the law to lessen that 72-hour posting notice? Or I don't think I understand.
Not changing any law.
Okay. So that aspect of the plan seems murky at best right now. Basically, during a camp removal, Wilson wants to offer people shelter and to have enough shelter to go around. Okay, great idea. I've been thinking that should be happening for a long time now. Even though city spokespeople say that happens now, people on the streets I've talked with say it's rare. But what happens if that person does not accept a shelter bed under Wilson's plan? Well, the mayor did not really have an answer for that either. In theory, if someone is camping on public property or the public right-of-way and there's a shelter bed available and they repeatedly refuse it, they could be arrested for violating the city's camping ban. That's when Portland police are supposed to get involved. But Wilson said several times today he wants to do everything in his power to limit police engagement in these situations. So how exactly would the camping ban be enforced then? We don't know. And I noticed a theme today during the meeting, how unclear the role of law enforcement is in all of this. The mayor saying we need to rethink how we care for people on our streets. So to recap, he wants people to go to these overnight shelters, many of which are not open yet, and then go to a day center to get connected to long-term services, which we also don't have enough of. So lots of questions remain. What if people don't want help? What if people do want help, but services aren't available? And another thing that really stood out to me today in the mayor's presentation, fentanyl was never mentioned. And we know that is a big reason many people stay on the streets and decline shelter. So Mayor Wilson, he has a plan, a lot of ideas. Some would argue great ones. But to me, that's where it ends. The execution and enforcement will be key, and we'll be watching. In the meantime, earlier today, Multnomah County held a meeting talking about homelessness. Mayor Wilson was also there. Now, I listened to over an hour of it, hoping to find a shred of new information as they talked about shelter expansion. And let me tell you, not much happened. The first 30 minutes was spent getting new members up to speed and sharing their hopes and dreams for the work in front of them. Okay, speaking of homelessness, tomorrow is the Tri-County point-in-time count. That's the federally required census of people experiencing sheltered and unsheltered homelessness on a single night in January every other year. Joining us now live is Dr. Marissa Zapata, the director of Portland State University's Homelessness Research and Action Collaborative, the group that leads the so-called PIT count. Dr. Zapata, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So what is the point of the point-in-time count other than just numbers?
It's to really gauge a snapshot of how many people are experiencing homelessness at this moment in the Portland region.
Okay, so we also know that it's required by the federal government, and Multnomah County and the other counties can get money from the federal government based on these numbers. Can you talk us through that? How much money are we talking?
The amount of money that is given to the continuums or the counties is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And that money is allocated in part based on need, population size, but also the specific demographics of the people who are experiencing homelessness.
Where does that money go exactly? What programs are we talking? What services get that money?
So a huge portion of the services are going to be around housing and what are called supportive services. So services that are for people who might need a case manager or a social worker, people who might need additional health care and supports of that nature. So first comes the housing, right? So it's thinking about rent assistance, producing or building housing, and then the services that help people succeed in their housing.
So walk us through how your team does this count every other year.
So we start with a lot of outreach. We actually just wrapped up our outreach worker party, and that is a celebration for all of the outreach workers who will go out and administer a survey to people who are living in the encampments that you were just talking about. We also rely on a huge network of volunteers around the region who will go to shelters, meal service sites, and administer the same survey. It's a huge logistical lift. We have hundreds of outreach workers and community volunteers going to probably 100 or so sites around the region, plus encampments, plus walking the streets and knocking on RV doors.
How do you find the sites that you target?
The sites that we go to are known sites, right? So places like the Blanchet House in downtown Portland, we know they're a meal service site. the library, places where we know that people who are experiencing homelessness either receive services at or tend to concentrate at. In terms of the encampments, that's all driven by the knowledge of our outreach workers and then supported by data from the city of Portland and from the Metro Regional Government to see where campsites have been reported. In addition to that, this is considered a traditional census, and so people will drive up and down the streets covering the region to make sure we really looked and tried to find everyone that we can to talk to.
So I'm curious, when your teams are out there, are they simply just counting people, or are they offering people any resources?
It's more than a count, and it's not an offer of resources. So it's something in between. The count is actually a survey, and we ask people a range of demographic backgrounds and factors, the amount of time that they've been homeless for. We also ask things about health conditions, chronic health conditions, and disability status. And those questions are aimed at trying to understand if there's been changes in our demographic profile or what the needs of people might actually be. We are also always asked whether people have moved here homeless to the region, because we know that's a very popular question, and that's not actually required from the federal government. We give people who we interview an incentive kit that includes all sorts of durable goods and food products in order to thank them for participating in the survey.
So we are running tight on time here, but I have a quick question for you. We know this count is always an undercount. Is there anything being done this year to try to make it more accurate?
Yes, so we will go out and do a survey, and then the counties will use their administrative data sets, often what's called a by name list, to augment the surveys that we give to see if we can actually come up with a more valid count of the number of people out there.
Okay, thank you so much for your time tonight. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks.
All right, so camp removals in the city of Portland are suspended right now in an effort to support that point in time count, so people are not constantly on the move. They were paused this past Monday. The city says they're still taking reports from the community and will visit sites this week, but only to remove, quote, camper identified trash, not the camps themselves. On Monday, I spoke with a couple of homeless women who had no clue removals were paused.
Yeah, that's great. They should really not be doing the moves, period, when it's this cold outside. Yeah, but that is exciting, at least, that there will be a week that people don't have to be uprooted all of their stuff and often having all of their belongings taken by rapid response. When you go to the place to try to retrieve your stuff, it's never all your things are there. Never. Yeah. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, it's good to give everybody a break because it's really a nonstop struggle. You know, you can't really set up. By the time you get everything set up, people are coming through to knock it down. So, yeah.
All right, so the pause or the break for those women lasts through next Monday. Crews will resume the removals on Tuesday, the 28th. All right, now we want to bring in live Brandy Tuck. She runs Path Home, a family shelter in Southeast Portland, one of the few family shelters in Multnomah County. She's here to talk about the people not often included in that point in time count. Brandy, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So first, does the result of this pit count that it's called impact shelters like yours?
You know, yeah, resources are really allocated to different populations based on what populations show up in the pit count. And if there's a high percentage of people that are Black or brown or Indigenous, for instance, more resources will go there. If there's a lot of unaccompanied youth, resources will go there, and so on.
So what in your eyes at the core is wrong with this point in time count?
I think the point in time count is a pretty severe undercount for a specific population, and that's homeless families with children. These are the moms and dads with kids that hide from the very outreach workers that are trying to go out and conduct the pit counts. And they hide because they're afraid for their safety. They're afraid that just by being homeless with their kids, that's grounds for the state to take their kids away. They're afraid that someone will kidnap their kids or that some kind of harm will come to their kids. And so they're hiding. They're camping deep in the woods. They're going in their cars through Walmart parking lots. They might be doubled up with friends or family in a backyard or in a garage, or they might be in a motel, especially when they know that folks are going to be out in the community seeking to find people that don't have homes.
So what do you think these crews could do differently to try and reach these families? And how important is it that these families are included in this count?
I think it's critically important that families are included in this count. Oregon right now has the highest rate of unsheltered family homelessness than any other state in the country. We have 14 times higher than the national average number of unsheltered homeless children. And I think that the way that we could really address this is, I don't know that the point in time count is ever going to find the families that are hiding from the folks that are trying to conduct this count, but we can look at other data sources like the Oregon Department of Education. They report on the number of students that experience homelessness every school year. And in the last school year that we have data for, the 2022-23 school year, 4,006 students experienced homelessness in Multnomah County alone. And that doesn't the little siblings, the little brothers and sisters that aren't yet in school, or their parents. And when we look at this data alongside the point in time count, we can really see visibly that there's a severe undercount of the families and the kids.
So what is the driving force behind families experiencing homelessness, and is enough being done to address it?
You know, families do not receive nearly enough resources in our community. Of the whole kind of resources that go to homelessness, families get less than 10% of the overall pie because they are really underrepresented in these counts. But this is one of the most critical populations that we need to serve. Families are not called out right now as a priority population in the Homeless Response Action Plan, and I think they really ought to be. The kids who are homeless today are a pipeline of chronically homeless adults in the future, and if we don't stop the cycle of homelessness now, we'll continue to have decades of challenges with people living on our streets.
Brandy, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next on the story, 5 people were arrested last night for vandalism during an anti-Trump protest in Portland. Today, the police chief and district attorney drew a clear line for what will and won't be tolerated during demonstrations in the Rose City, what they said and what we know about those arrested when the story returns. Today, the Portland Police Chief and Multnomah County District Attorney drew a clear line when it comes to what is and is not allowed during demonstrations and protests. Now, this comes after 5 people were arrested last night during an anti-Trump protest and march downtown. John Adams is in Portland tonight following this for us. John, walk us through what happened here.
Absolutely, Blair. Police Chief Bob Day said about 200 people gathered here at Waterfront Park on Tuesday night to protest the policies of the Trump administration. But police say when the group began marching through downtown Portland, officers noticed people vandalizing structures with spray paint. Police quickly arrested those 5 people taking part in that. Paint cans, fireworks, and other items were also seized.
So, John, what do we know about those 5 people that were arrested?
Well, we know those 5 individuals all made their first court appearance here in Multnomah County today. They face a number of different charges ranging from criminal mischief to interfering with a peace officer and resisting arrest. They range in age from 19 to 31 years old. 3 of the 5 people had no criminal record whatsoever, and 2 of them only faced some minor traffic violations in the past.
So, John, I'm curious, did the police chief or DA talk about its approach to handling events like this?
Yeah, Blair, Chief Day says they really have changed their approach since about 2020 when Portland saw all of those protests. PPB is incorporating more bicycle police of late, and they have also increased training for officers on de-escalation and other crowd control tactics. Chief Day says the Bureau is tracking at least one more protest that could happen over the weekend. DA Vasquez says former policies to not prosecute criminal behavior at protests detracted from people demonstrating peacefully. And that's, of course, a not so subtle jab possibly at his former boss, Mike Schmidt. Now, Vasquez says no matter what your political affiliation is, no matter whether you're a conservative or liberal or right down the middle, he will prosecute you if you partake in criminal activity during a protest. Blair?
John Adams in Portland for us tonight. John, thank you. Now let's get to some of your thoughts on a story we brought you yesterday. A bipartisan group of Oregon lawmakers calling on the new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, to cancel a federal plan meant to help the spotted owl population in the West. Those lawmakers cited a nonprofit's estimation that the plan to kill 450,000 invasive barred owls over the course of 30 years would cost $1.35 billion, or around $45 million a year. The lawmakers question if that's a good use of taxpayer dollars, saying previous efforts to help the spotted owl, namely economic impacts in rural areas over the last few decades, are not helping anyway. So why spend more on this new federal plan? DOGE has not yet responded to the letter, but we'll keep you posted. Now, we got a wide range of responses from you guys last night, and some of you say the plan should stay in place and that yes, the money is worth spending to try and save the spotted owl. On our YouTube page, a viewer wrote, "Invasive species are a threat to the natural ecosystem. Maintaining a natural ecosystem should be a top priority for humankind." Charles chimed in saying $45 million a year is not a lot when you make comparisons the conservative lawmakers didn't offer. They just want to cut down the remaining ancient forests for billions of dollars, and the spotted owl is in their way. Spotted owls are biomarkers of the health and the ecosystem which humans are a part of. And another viewer named Dennis had this to say about the Oregon lawmakers who want the federal plan canceled.
What they're doing is, instead of worrying about finances, are actually pandering to their constituents and the Republican constituents who dislike the Environmental Protection Agency and the use to save animals in the world. They would rather see strip logging in Oregon than to save an animal. That is wrong. These guys are misguided. They need to be replaced.
But there are plenty of you out there who agree with lawmakers just to let nature handle it.
Please leave the owls alone. Let Mother Nature take care of it. We have bigger problems in Oregon.
Now, Martha wrote to us, "I think it's absurd to go and kill a species just to kill it. Human beings shouldn't have hierarchy over the animal population. Darwin preached survival of the fittest. If the barred owl is more fitted for existence, then let the barred owl live."
I feel like after watching your news story tonight about the spotted owls, may the best owl win.
All right, so lots of thoughts on that one. We'll keep an eye on it and tell you what happens next. But that is the end of our show, folks. So thank you so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. Remember, you can also stream the story on your own schedule. Just download the free KGW Plus app, available now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. And a quick programming note for you, we will not have a show for you tomorrow night because of the Seattle Kraken hockey here on KGW, but we'll be back with you on Friday at 6:30. We'll see you then.